If I'm being completely honest, this video was inspired by the God Valley incident where we see characters like Silver's Rayleigh, or Scopper Gabon, or the legendary Bogart, or even looking at the Rocks Pirates with Whitebeard, Big Mom, Shiki, legendary captains that were actually underlings at the time 38 years ago. They were not captains in this moment, and it makes me think of that iconic cover where we see Oda showing us all the vice captains. We have seen Silver's really do some amazing things, like recently with the Conqueror's Haki coding that had Blackbeard backing out, or we've seen King with his Lunarian abilities that even got transferred to the Seraphim, and even his Ancient Zone ability. Shout out to him kicking the Big Mom and her pirate crew off of the waterfall. There's also Katakuri versus Luffy, and what need I say more with Katakuri versus Luffy? Katakuri did it all, honestly. Or even when it comes to the situation of Killer, like him fighting Kaido and doing a devastating attack on Kaido, or him of course defeating Hawkins with intelligence but also durability. And then of course there's also Marco versus the Big Mom Pirates and the exact same thing King did, or Marco versus Big Mom, a Yonko, or even Marco versus King and Queen at the same time. Like Marco did it up in Wano. Even him stopping Kaido's flame was the icing on the cake. There's also even Law's vice captain in Beppo, who's been pretty much trash all the way up to after Wano, where he goes into his Sulong form and goes up against Blackbeard pirates. That's the captain, Marshal DT, worth almost 4 billion berries, and of course saved this captain. I gotta give respect to respect is due. Or even Shitty the Rain with his new invisibility Dullford ability, but also his swordsmanship skill to stab the hero of the Marines, Garp. Yes, Garp's old, but still, that was a crazy attack he did in Garp. And then of course he had tanked an attack from Garp as well, and was still standing at the end of the fight. So I will give Shitty a little bit of credit. And I can't forget of course of Sabo, the vice captain of the Dragon, where he was going up against the Gorsei and Imu, the king of the world. And do I have to say anything about like Zoro, guys? Do I have to say anything about Zoro? Like, he scarred Kaido in Wano. He tanked an attack from both Big Mom and Kaido. Yes, it damaged all the bones in his body, but he went on to scar Kaido right after. Then he beats King with Conqueror's Haki coding, a Lunarian Ancient Zone, and now is fighting an awakened Carnivorous Zone in Rob Lucci, top CP0 agent. Like, honestly. But the one guy I want to see so badly, I mentioned all these badass and legendary vice captains. The one guy I want to see so badly that's in that cover as well and hasn't shown a thing, but let's be honest here, with them saying he's the moon to Shanks' son, and with Shanks sunning the F out of Useless Kid and Killer, a vice captain with their captain, I think Ben Beckman is going to do some great things. I think he's one of the greatest vice captains in One Piece history, and find out at the end of the video why I think that. If you want to look at Ben Beckman's character, he's a character that's been in the story since chapter 1. Yes, his debut was the first ever chapter in One Piece, where Ben Beckman tells Luffy Shanks isn't just doing what's best for everyone. He's not just doing what's best for himself, and talks about the safety of the crew and the ship rests on Shanks' shoulder, and being a pirate isn't all fun and games. And it reminds me, of course, with Eustace Kid, when Kaido beat Eustace Kid, he tells him being a pirate isn't fun and games. So that quote came back, of course, and we know Kid and Beckman are connected. Now I do want to say this, there's a lot of duties, like, that's what Ben Beckman says, there's a lot of duties like pillaging, hostage taking, heavy drinking, and swimming, which confirms to me personally that Ben Beckman is obviously a Haki beast, just like his Captain Shanks. He probably doesn't have a Dullford ability. And then of course he then vouches for Shanks, saying he knows all the dangers of the sea and that it can kill you in 1,000 ways. And we all know he's referencing, of course, his journey on the Pirate King's crew. And then of course says he ain't trying to crush your dreams of being a pirate. And like, let's be honest here, there's definitely, you know, Shanks has been a pirate all his life since, like, let's be honest, he's been a pirate since God Valley where Roger found him, so Shanks would know. Also in the first chapter, after Lucky Roo shoots one of the mountain bandits, they start complaining about fighting fair, and Ben Beckman steps in to say wise words. You're not dealing with saints over here. And it makes me think of Luffy versus Kaido, from like Luffy taking on Kaido, but Kaido went up against the Red Scabbards, Zoro, Eustace Kid, Trafalgar Law, Yamato, that was crazy, the Mythical Zone, Killer as well. You have to admit, Momonosuke in the exact same Dullford as Kaido, just being pink. Like, even like, that's just crazy. Of course, you can also look at Luffy's side, where CP0 had to interrupt for Kaido to get that finishing blow on Gear 4th Luffy. I'm not saying Kaido would have lost, I'm just saying that still happened. And that's just showing how this pirate battle had so many crazy unfair things happen to both parties. It was insane. And then of course Ben Beckman puts his cigarette out on one of the bandits' nose, and he uses his rifles to beat every single bandit. And just from that, he gives me the vibes of Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji. And let me explain. Zoro because, of course, he's the vice captain. Sanji because he's very intelligent. You know, Oda said he was very intelligent. And also he's smoking a cigarette. And Usopp, of course, because he has a gun. He has a rifle. But he uses it like Zoro, that weapon like Zoro, when he comes to hitting every single one. Like it's like a bat. Honestly, he's the combination of all the original monster trio that's, not, of course, under Luffy. Like, I think Usopp is going to be a top Yonko commander, just like Zoro and Sanji. But that's my optimism. It hasn't been facts yet, but a man can wish, right? A man can hope. And then Ben Beckman says, you were saying something about mountain bandits and pirates. If you want to fight us, you better bring a battleship. And Luffy just is shocked and awe. He's like, yo, this guy is strong. And Makino even says, wow. That's Shanks' girl saying, wow. So you know he did some crazy things with all the bandits on the ground. And if Luffy's saying that when he was a kid, imagine what we're going to say as fans seeing Ben Beckman. Yeah, he's a little older. He has gray hair and everything. But Ben Beckman's to do some crazy things in the, of course, we all know the next war he's going to be in. It has to be a Yonko. And the funniest moment is when Shanks is panicking when, of course, the smoke bomb happens and Luffy gets kidnapped and Lucky Roo had to calm him down. And all you look at Ben Beckman, he's just like, wow. Like, he's just like, Captain, relax a bit. That's his face is saying. He's like just looking at Shanks wilding out. I found it funny because Ben Beckman seems to be the one that calms Shanks is down. He doesn't seem to act erratic while Shanks has those crazy moments where he's like, whoa, what's going on? I'm not saying that Shanks is like a goofy character or anything. I'm just saying that Shanks has his moments that are pretty funny. And of course, Ben Beckman has to calm him down because he's chill, laid back. And I thought it was pretty cool how he tells Shanks that kid's gonna make something of himself when referencing Luffy. And Shanks, of course, replies, he reminds me of myself as a kid. That's pretty cool how he predicted that because that was chapter 1 and now we're in chapter 1000, almost 1100, almost 1100 chapters later. Luffy is a 3 billion berry man who just took down Kaido and is a Yonko in the One Piece seas. So he did make a name for himself. I thought it was pretty cool the first time we ever see Ben Beckman in the current story, not in a flashback. He has gray hair, he looks a bit older, and he's telling Shanks, won't the world government stop us if we go up and meet up with the Yonko? So it looks like he is the wise one of the Red Hair Pirates group, like how Oda said, he's the smartest and he's blue. So just a crazy point, he's always seems to be the logical one. So like you can even add Robin in the combination of how his character is. And probably one of his most iconic moments, even more iconic than his run-in with Kid, is him of course telling Marine Admiral Kizaru to freeze. And like, let's be honest here, he was frozen. Kizaru was like, oh, Ben Beckman. He said, don't make a move. And of course, the next chapter, we also see that he says, crap, looks like he's still one up ahead. So he's like, he really thought his words would have stopped an Admiral. He has very confidence in his ability. And he was like, damn, Kizaru still went after I told him not to go. Just makes me look at him as he has to be Admiral level. I know it's crazy to say because I was the guy back years ago when Katakuri was first showing his abilities of Awakening, Conqueror's Haki, and all those amazing things he did with Future Sight. I thought Katakuri is Admiral level. Now, of course, I've taken things back. I still think that Prime Katakuri versus Prime Green Bull is going to be high difficulty. But at the end of the day, you have to admit it, Ben Beckman looks to be Admiral level. I've said it before, but I don't mind saying for Ben Beckman, even after the mistake I made, because I think he's a monster. And then, of course, we see him post time skip. The first time we see him post time skip is on the cover story, where we see him with his captain, but also his weakest crew member when it comes to Rockstar. And, of course, we also see them looking at... There's contrast with Shanks' strongest guy, Ben Beckman, and his weakest guy, Rockstar, and when it comes to the main crew. But there's also their prediction coming true when they're looking at the bounty of the 500 million berry man who just defeated Doflamingo, the warlord. He made a name for himself. Luffy made a name for himself, and we see Ben Beckman and Shanks' reaction. It makes sense because that's who predicted it in chapter 1. Or chapter 957, where when it comes to talking about Shanks, they have to mention his crew and saying how powerful crew is, especially guys like Yasop, Lucky Roo, and his vice captain Ben Beckman. Now you have to understand, they didn't say that about Blackbeard's vice captain, they didn't say that about Shiryu, they didn't say that about Big Mom's vice captain, they didn't say that about Katakuri, though I love him, and they didn't say that about Kaido's vice captain. Yes, I'm talking about King the Wildfire, but they did say it about, of course, Shanks' vice captain Ben Beckman. So he has to be different amongst those other monsters. Like all three of those guys are monsters. Shiryu the Rain with his invisible Delphin ability and his sword, King with his Lunarian abilities and his ancient Zoan, and Katakuri with his Future Sight and Conqueror's Haki and Awakening. Those guys are all monsters, and I think Ben Beckman is above them. That's why I'm so excited to see him actually go crazy and put in work. It's going to be fun to see. Now, of course, at the end of Wano, we just seen in the anime, we see one of the red hair pirates say there's the snot brat named Kid is still there, and he says how he has to pay for picking a fight with us. I'm just thinking, yo, the guy just lost his arm. What more do you want from Kid? And we all know what happened there. And now he just got a 3 billion berry bounty. I think that that character, Lime Juice, definitely lost to Kid in a fight for some reason. The why he's so hard dead on that, like, oh, that's not Brat Kid is here, everything. Because we know that the other top red pair pirates like Ben Beckman, Lucky Udo, and Yasop don't give a crap about Kid, and they have no beef with him. But Lime Juice has a beef with him. He probably went up against Kid, lost, and then we all know who stepped in, the main character of this whole video. We also get a flashback of when Shanks got the legendary Nika Nika no Mi, Joy Boy stealth ability, and Ben Beckman did warn Shanks, yo, there's CP9 agents on board. That's trouble. He always gives Shanks a warning not to go too crazy, and Shanks of course said, F it, we ball. That's pretty much what I read in his context. So it was pretty cool to see. Ben Beckman's always the voice of reason for Shanks, regardless. Imagine the voice of reason, he has to have, like, it reminds me of Bleach when it comes to Kiyako, I forgot his name, of course, but the guy with 2 swords in Bleach, guys. You guys all know I'm talking about, who became the captain after. Now, of course, at the end of Wano, Shanks is dodging meeting Luffy, saying we have to handle business back in our territory. Now, of course, the whole crew buys Shanks' act, but Ben Beckman doesn't buy it. He just looks on, thinking, yeah, that's an excuse. He's using Bartolome as an excuse because Shanks is not ready to meet Luffy right now at the end of Wano. Even though Luffy did the promise, he's not ready. There's things that have to be done before he actually meets Luffy. Then, of course, Shanks is drinking with, of course, who else? The main character of this video, his vice captain, Ben Beckman. And he says, yo, Beck, I think it's time we make our move. Let's claim the One Piece. That to me means that Ben Beckman and Shanks are definitely looking at the One Piece as a goal. And we've seen Shanks meet up with Yasa, but we haven't seen him meet up with Ben Beckman yet, his vice captain. So we're most likely going to see an impactful meeting when they actually join each other's crew. Kind of how like we saw King and of course King and Kaido, and how they met up in Punk Hazard. I think Ben Beckman and Shanks are going to have a really cool moment of how they became crewmates. And I can't wait to see. I'm excited for this whole story. And you have to understand, before Kid, of course, let's be honest here, before his whole alliance got destroyed by Kaido in Chapter 795, when Kaido fell from the Sky Island, they wanted to, of course, go for red hair Shanks' head. And we always wanted to know why. It was always one of our things, like, why did they want to go to red hair Shanks? Like, what's Oda cooking with this plot line? And then, of course, Caribou's talking so much trash about Kid, and he says, yo, Big Mom ripped his arm off, and he lost his reputation. And Kid steps in and says, nah, I lost my arm before that in a battle with the red hair pirates. And he doesn't mention names, though. But he does say that after that, I went to Whole Cake Island and defeated one of the Sweet Commanders. So whoever took his arm on the red hair pirates, which we all know the guy I'm talking about in this video, definitely made Kid stronger, because after that he took out a top Yonko commander, and like, that is just crazy. You gotta give respect to Kid, yo. He definitely improved after losing an arm. So Ben Beckman, congratulations for helping Kid out. And we see Ben Beckman speak about Kid by saying the enemies must be furious, and Lucky Roo says, that's rich coming from you, Beck. Now, of course, he also says, who do you think he's mad at? And of course, Oda confirmed it recently in the SBS that Ben Beckman was the one who took Use's Kid's arm. Now, I'm just thinking, yeah, Ben Beckman taking his arm is cool and all. The vice captain of Yonko, like, he took out Kid's arm. Kid is now worth 3 billion berries, and he helped Law to take out Big Mom. So Kid is a big deal. Guys, regardless of what you think of Kid, he's still a big deal. So Ben Beckman gets a W for that. But still, how did you take his arm off? Like, you hit people with a gun. Did you shoot it off? Did you whack it off with a Haki gun attack? Like, I just don't, all I know is if it wasn't a sword, did it come off even clean? There's so many questions I have. I really want to see that scene of Kid losing his arm to Ben Beckman. And then, of course, they do a panel of Kid, and he says, we didn't even get to see Shanks. And that's funny, because, like, imagine going to a Yonko territory and you don't even get to see the captain. Like, that really is a humbling experience. And Kid knows all too well about humbling experiences. And then he grabs his arm, showing that he was so close to seeing Shanks, but he only got to the strongest crew member in Ben Beckman, the vice captain. And honestly, that is crazy. And Killer says, we got beaten to a pulp. So the whole crew got beaten to a pulp, but not without beating Shanks. Ben Beckman and co just destroyed Kid's crew. And Kid says, you lost an arm. And it's pretty much the reverse of Luffy versus Katakuri on Whole Cake Island. How, like, Luffy went up against Cracker and Katakuri and took W's and became the 5th emperor and got a bounty over 1 billion berries. Kid went against the red hair pirates. Now I did think that Kid probably did defeat Lime Juice, a top younger commander, not top, like a mid top, like kind of like a flying six member of the red hair pirates, who's still very strong. But I think he lost to Ben Beckman, lost his arm, and that's where their story ended there. At least he got spared though. And then of course the statement of this time they won't just take an arm, they will take your life. They're not going to give chances to the Kid after they give him a chance. And Ben Beckman spared him and shows you what kind of character Ben Beckman is. Like think about the 10 days that Akainu and Aokiji fought. And Akainu, of course, spared Aokiji's life because of how they rose up in the ranks to becoming admirals. Ben Beckman and Kid have nothing connected together. So for Ben Beckman to spare him says a lot about his character. And I found it quite funny how Lucky Roo wanted the leftovers of Ben Beckman, saying, pretty much like even Lime Juice was posted like he wanted his revenge on Kid or something. I have to understand how this whole story goes down, but of course, like I said, Ben Beckman left Lucky Roo one of the leftovers, and Shanks tells Lucky Roo, relax. This guy's now worth 3 billion berries, and like make sure he's healthy. He tells Yasa make sure he's healthy. So for that statement, Shanks is pretty much saying, Lucky Roo, you probably would lose to Eustace Kid now. He's an awakened user with Haki and just took out Big Mom. Like, with the help of Law, you probably would lose. Now, you guys want to hear my opinion? I do think Kid would beat Lucky Roo. I think it would be very high difficulty, but I think he could beat Lucky Roo. Now, Ben Beckman, the vice captain that he lost his arm to, I'm not too sure because I have a lot of props to Ben Beckman. I think Ben Beckman is Admiral level, and I think Kid is very close to Admiral level. I think Kid is like, how do I say this? I think Kid is like Fujitora, Greenbow, very close to those new Admiral levels, and I think that Kizaru, Aokiji, like those type of admirals, and I kind of pretend they're like a crazy admiral level. They're so close to Yonko level that I think Ben Beckman is on that level. Like I think Ben Beckman could still be Kid after it's all said and done. I think Ben Beckman could still be Kid. Now, of course, the Kid gets a buff like Luffy does. He could have a chance to defeating Ben Beckman, but at the end of the day, think about this, yo. The captain of Ben Beckman, what he did to Eustace Kid. Wow. And speaking of that, when Kid was about to destroy the entire fleet of a Yonko crew, which was insane. He was not just a destroyer, he was killing like top bounty. Yes, the fleet of red hair pirates is pretty weak, but they still have some captains with bounties, pretty infamous. And Kid was about to destroy all of them with his damn punk, and then their ships were getting pulled in with magnetism. And Shanks saw so deep into the future, and he couldn't let it happen. And Ben Beckman says, wow. Says you probably saw an ugly future. Now I'm thinking, is this confirmation that Ben Beckman also has future sight just like Shanks? And if that's the case, we know he doesn't have a Delphi ability. He probably can swim. So if his Haki is like not Shanks level, but like close, like where he has like crazy advanced observation Haki, armored Haki, like the Admirals have advanced armored Haki. So I expect Ben Beckman to have it if he doesn't have a Delphi ability. And if he has Conqueror's Haki too, we've seen characters like Katakuri have it. We've seen characters like Zoro. So it's not far-fetched, even Rayleigh, it's not far-fetched for vice captains to have Conqueror's Haki. If he has that, then Ben Beckman, whoever goes up against him, will have a lot in store. Now, Ben Beckman, we know he's a genius character, and we know he's a vice captain of a very incredible crew. And his next fight will probably be against the Blackbeard Pirates, because Shanks was going after Blackbeard. But I don't think he'll go against a swordsman. Yes, it makes sense. It could be like a King Zoro thing where like Ben Beckman goes up against Shooty the Rain, a swordsman versus a man who is not a swordsman but like can fight like that, like King. But I don't think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna be different. I think what we're gonna see is we have a better opponent for Shooty the Rain. I think Shooty the Rain and Miyako would be a very cool fight. If Miyako comes to help out Red Hair Pirates, I've always been a fan of that. But I think a better opponent for Ben Beckman would be if he fights the former Admiral Aokiji. Because we already know his run with Kizaru, so Kizaru respects his power. So for him to go against Aokiji, now Aokiji lost a leg. We don't know if he is nerfed after his fight with Akainu. So if he has a crazy extreme high diff battle with Aokiji, we just saw him recently fight Garp with the help of the Blackbeard Pirates. And we see Aokiji with his awakening, Logia. And we know that Aokiji has hints of him using Future Sight during Marineford when it comes to Wiper stabbing him. Or, of course, actually seeing him use Advanced Armor Haki. And some people think he has Conqueror's Haki coding too. We're not too sure about that. But we know he's incredibly strong with his training under Garp, which we saw recently. It could be an amazing fight. And honestly, we can also get redemption of the diss that Greenbow had about Yonko Commander. So let's be honest here. King lost to, of course, Greenbow. He was injured, of course, but he still had Queen and his other crew members. If he was healthy, I think Greenbow could still take it in a 1v1. And now, of course, Katakuri, and who lost to Luffy, who wasn't even Admiral level, in my personal opinion. And then, of course, we also have characters like Shooty the Rain, who let's be honest here. Shooting the Rain is not Admiral level. Yes, he's really powerful, swordsman with invisible ability, but I don't think he's Admiral level. Ben Beckman could be the vice captain. Just like I think Marco is Admiral level. I think Ben Beckman could be another vice captain to show. Vice captain to Yonkos can go toe-to-toe with the Admirals. But definitely people be like, yo, no, it's going to stop the Admiral Yonko hype. How Admirals should be on Yonko level. Well, look what we recently saw with the Yonko Luffy versus Admiral Kizaru. Guys, the One Piece story is definitely now, like, power scaling is now being shown in a really clear sight. And I think we're going to see some cool stuff, of course, with Ben Beckman. And I think he could be a character to show how hype young commanders are. Because we know Zoro's going to do it. We know Zoro and the story is going to be, like, even, I think Zoro and the story is going to be Yonko level because he's the vice captain to a pirate king. Like, really in his primary is Yonko level. So, that's my opinion on things. I thought I would do a video on Ben Beckman because they're gonna fight soon, guys. Ben Blackbeard versus Shanks is happening soon, so we have to talk about the Ben Beckman hype, of course.